All this stuff is kicking off, and it seems to be very difficult now to discuss any ideas at all without people getting aggravated and insults being thrown. So where are we in terms of our ability to talk about things as a society, in your opinion, Claire?
I think you feel as though society's become tongue-tied in some respects. There's a real sense in which people are very conscious if they say the wrong thing, they might be attacked for being offensive, for being inflammatory, for saying things which will upset other people, being accused of inciting violence. So there's a sense of people walking on eggshells that coexists with people being entirely unrestrained and saying the most preposterous things all at the same time. So it's like this really weird thing, you know, sometimes I don't know whether I can say that. And then people just being utterly abusive in a way, you know, and by the way, I think that this is almost regardless of what kind of politics you espouse, it's not particularly confined to one group of people. I think the recent parliamentary spat about inflammatory language caused some upset because, as you rightly pointed out, one would never be able to use a metaphor anymore. If you constantly having to, if people say you can't use any battle analogies or any military analogies, well, we're in trouble because we run a festival called the Battle of Ideas for a start, right? You know, and there's battle for education and so on. So, you know, that's where we start. But on the other hand, it also felt very hypocritical because it might well be that Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, had ratcheted up the language and certainly was doing very big rhetorical, kind of huge swathes of making himself out to be the great leader of this big Brexit battle. And people were saying, well, you know, calm down a bit. But these, on the one hand, are people who've spent quite some time accusing other people of being Nazis, fascists, you know, leading to the Third Reich and so on and so forth. And quite violent imagery has been deployed in terms of trying to stop Brexit. But I don't want to just get confined to Brexit. I'm just saying that the sense of double standards and hypocrisy is something that we have to bear in mind, just winds people up. Certainly winds me up.
Well, I mean, we're all, according to some people, we're all Nazis in this room, which is lovely to have a Third Reich meeting. Surely, Elliot, isn't that people's right to, you know, say what they think? You know, if someone thinks you're a fascist, they're welcome to do that, and it doesn't really have any effect?
No, well, it doesn't have any effect if you. It only does if you let it have an effect, and obviously. I and Claire, and the slogan of the Battle of Ideas is free speech allowed. So it's very much about having that public debate, being in favour of people just saying what they think. But I think the context is key because at the moment, the panic about speech and words like surrender or humbug or whatever it is that politicians are throwing around.
What a terrible word, humbug. I mean,
as well as the kind of worry about escalating language on social media and the effect it has, sometimes quite serious issues about, as Claire says, abusive language on social media, is happening at a time in which we've got a broader political issue going on, which is a quite deep fear of the public and a fear of the masses and quite a lot of prejudice going on. And so there's this sort of, when people, especially people in political power, talk about the fear of demagogues or Nazis or whoever it is inciting violence through their speech, and the need to kind of everyone to calm down, what it really is saying is we're quite scared of having a public debate, because if that public debate happens, then, you know, the mob are going to grab their pitchforks and are going to come after us. And of course that's, one, entirely not true, but it also is it's escalating and creating a problem that they're afraid of. They're afraid that people are going to get violent, get rebellious, and cause problems. But at the same time, they're saying, no one talk about anything. No one criticise us. No one do anything. Anything you say is not just wrong, but illegal. And I tell you, this is what people who are interested in free speech always point out, and it's true, that if you want to make a problem out of something, push it underground, censor it, give it a kind of glamour that it shouldn't necessarily enjoy, and that's when the problem happens. So the antidote is always sunlight, is always more debate, is always more speech. And you've got, at the moment, a political establishment which is just so hostile to any kind of discussion about its actions. which I think isn't going to end well if it keeps going down this very censorious route.
And this is where the Battle of Ideas, the festival that you guys run every year, comes in, because one of the great things about that is you genuinely get people from all over the political spectrum. I mean, you know, we'll be interviewing Lord Adonis, who is not going to be that popular with most of our pro-Brexit viewers, I imagine. But you get people from across the spectrum, genuinely, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed. Like, I'm curious how you managed to do that, actually, because we struggle to get, like, you know, kind of woke leftist guests on because they are afraid to be even tarnished by association. So how do you get all these people together?
Well, it's just, I mean, I think people understand that. I think people are cautious about things being a setup. And so a lot of the time in political debate in the media, for example, anyone who's ever done it knows that you get put into a room and you get told to kind of battle it out with each other. And it can often be quite fractious. The difference about the festival is because it's centred around public debate, actually the focus is not on the speakers themselves, but within their interaction with a wider audience. And so people understand that this is a genuine platform where you will be given a fair shot to try and win over the audience. And I think anyone who's serious about their political views, whether you are a socialist or a hard right person, or whatever view you have, what we're essentially saying is go for it, and you might well completely win over the audience, and I might be devastated because I've lost the argument. But it is a fair game, and it has been a fair game for 15 years, and I think people really appreciate that space to do it. And as it happens, as it often is the case that at the festival, I will enter a room hating someone's political views and ready to make a contribution to the floor and really nail them, and come out being convinced that actually I was being completely one-sided about something. So it's that kind of it's a different space for public debate than happens within, you know, media discussions or other places.